Wait.
Here's the bird. Present. Hello, moms, and anyone caring with teens and children, and anyone who supports, helps. We'd love to have you here. This is our weekly Zoomcast workshop for moms. Every week, we will bring you speakers and experts covering the topics of interest to parents. This is a community that supports the important work you do raising your kids. I'm Michelle, host for today's show. Our show is coming to you at 4 p.m. Pacific time, and the next time we will meet here will be 9 a.m. Pacific time. It'll rotate each week so that we try to get all the time zones in. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. I'm here so excited to introduce our first speaker tonight. Tracy is a master teacher, having taught thousands of kids over the decades. PK, to grade 8, 4 generations, starting with Gen X. She is a California Elementary Art Teacher of the Year 2013. So proud of you, Tracy. And honored for creating a California Exemplary Art Program in 2015. You are our expert. Having worked in 14 schools and taught hundreds and hundreds of kindergartners, Tracy knows it's important to reach parents of small children ages 2 to 5 in this age of handheld electronics. Isn't that so true? She wants to reassure you that scribbling and coloring is the path to a thriving in school. Let's get ready to learn a little bit about scribbling because I can't wait. Take it away for us, Tracy.
Oh, thank you, Michelle, for that introduction. And I'm going to switch to screen share here. So we all have all these interesting technical things that we're learning. Now this stopped, Michelle, that stopped your screen sharing, right?
Correct.
Okay, so let me see where my slides are. There we go. Okay. So everybody, this seems like a really, like, of course we scribble, and all of this seems like of course, why are we having this discussion? Now, can you see my slides at all? Or I didn't do screen share right. Okay, I didn't do it right. It tells me that I am screen sharing. So can you see my slides?
Yep.
I can, but you are not in present mode.
Okay, that's what
you are screen sharing, but you just need to put in present mode.
All right. So everybody, the reason I want to talk about this, and it seems funny, like in January, I would be addressing this, but right now, the preschools are filling up. Believe it or not, in October, they started having open houses and taking applications. And as you know, we've had just so many teachers leaving the field, including myself, and there aren't as many slots. So if you are thinking for preschool in September, that's why I'm here urging you to pay attention to it now, because they are now going to start filling the slots, even though it's January. So it's not something anymore that, well, we think we're kind of ready for preschool and we'll apply in May. That's getting almost to be impossible. So not to be alarmist, but just want you to know why I'm here talking to you about this in January. All right. Now, the other thing that I want everybody to know is that you can help me on my mission here to make sure that we are actually getting the drawing and the scribbling that little kids need. So I'm really addressing parents, and maybe you know some who have little children. And so the thing is, we teachers don't really get to talk to parents until they formally enroll their kids to kindergarten. And it is too late on some things, believe it or not, because what I'm going to talk about today needs to be happening in this age group of 2 to 5. And if you, you've got grandchildren, or you've got small ones, then we really want you to know about this. It's not hard, but it's surprising how much handheld electronics are interfering with what is normally a very normal process. Okay, now I am not moving through my slides here, and I don't know why. Let me see if we can do it. Okay. So the interesting thing is with small children, you already know what to do. That's the great thing about it. And they know what to do. That is what is so fascinating about what we're going to talk about, because what we're talking about is universal to little humans everywhere. And it doesn't matter. I've taught in 14 schools in 3 states and in traveling and working and giving workshops. This is so universal to small children. So one of the things that I really want to bring up to parents is there have been these 4 essentials, and they have been around. And we even in LA where I am, we even see billboards, read to your child, talk to your child. So we've had these, but I'm adding this one thing that gets overlooked. And brain development, we know a lot about this. It's been evolving since the 1970s, and we really apply what we learn in education. And I just want to make sure this isn't getting dropped, because I have been absolutely shocked in some of the preschools that have been attached to the schools where I have been. We have been losing this key element. So here's the 4 things that we all have heard about: interacting with your child, talking to your child. We're even encouraging people to talk to their babies, reading aloud every day. Of course, serving nutritious food, but fast food is everywhere. Play. And drawing kind of has gotten lumped into play, and I'm pulling out as a separate topic, and that's why we're going to talk about it. And kids need to be drawing and doodling every day. And believe it or not, this is the key to getting readiness. Here's these 5 things. It's not hard. We just need to do them. So when I taught in a school where the preschool teachers did not like art and they were not giving it to the children, I wrote this book mostly for my faculty and my staff, and give workshops about this. And that's my granddaughter when she was 4. And so I've learned from having my own family, from kids, but having small children in the house really helped me to see the importance of this. We also, my daughter adopted a boy when he was 5, and he had only been in foster care, never had been given any kind of preparation. And we really saw as educators how vital this is, how vital preschool is to children, but doing the drawing. When you have a child who's never been exposed to any of that, it has impacted his school life forever. Now, I'm not going to go over all these credentials, but the one thing that I want to say is how much, art programs got shoved out for tech labs. And now we don't even have tech labs anymore. We've gone to one-on-one in schools, but trying to get the drawing and the art back because of the key role it plays in the life of an elementary student. So the art marks of young children are really important. And when you learn how to read them, you can really see where the kids are. Now, I just love watching preschoolers, like 3-year-olds, coming into this really critical point where they make the leap that symbols stand for things. And when you get there, and you get there by drawing, this is the beginning of complex thinking. And I don't see it really any different than when people were living in caves and realized, the fantastic paintings that we see that human beings do. I don't see a huge difference between that and our little ones making that same leap, that you can teach somebody that this thing stands for something, and that is a small human being making that leap. I just think it's so exciting to watch it happen. Now, little kids don't need a lot. You don't need the 64 box of crayons. They just need a few things. But before they have the verbal, they have the visual, and this is their language, and this is how they are working and expressing their thinking with just few simple tools. You don't need much, especially if you don't want them coloring on the walls. And I do say with really small children, don't use paint, because they don't necessarily see the difference between paint and poop and all this other stuff, and you don't need all that stuff on their walls. It's kind of a very tactile experience when they're really, really little. So you don't have to feel like you have to do everything, parents. The thing is, this drawing is an inside job. All the thing that your child is drawn to do, excuse the pun, all the things that they are doing themselves is coming from them. You don't have any impact on that, except giving them the opportunity to do so. And we have come to the point, and having taught for decades, I have been through every educational, we slam back and forth between different movements and worksheets and computers and all this stuff. And I bet the academic work for small children is drawing. That prepares them for all the next subjects, and they can't get to the next subjects except drawing their way there. So it's an inside job, and I've never seen it so short-circuited as I have when Gen Z was first coming into school. And right now they're the young people in the workforce, and they're still in the schools. They're at about, 6th grade, junior high, kind of around in there now. We were asking, what's going to happen? These were our first digital natives. What are they going to be like? How do we teach them? We go, we don't know. We'll find out. Okay, so now we're finding out. And so we don't want to short circuit this really important part of being a human being. And I have to say, as an educator and watching things get kind of turned upside down at times, children need to draw first, then they read, and then they write. And we have been putting the cart before the horse and trying to force kids to do things beyond their ability. And that is pointless. So one of the things that really has bothered me a lot is flunking kindergartners because they can't write sentences. They can't write sentences because they don't have the drawing there. When they get there, they'll do it, but you can't make them do it beyond their having gotten there themselves by miles of drawing. So let's talk a little bit about scribbling and where we are and what we see and how to be able to read it. So the 3 types of scribbling that kids need to go through is very random, and then getting to be a more controlled scribble, and then when they actually start to put narration with their scribbles and naming things. This is all super duper important and so fun to watch it evolve. So random, we all know what this is, and really small children. But as I said, adopting a child who was 5 who had no exposure to any drawing materials, you're going to go through and your stuff's going to look the same, whether you're 1.5 or whether you're up at 5, when you don't give the kids materials. And part of this is just the fun of it. And they, by doing this, will start to strengthen those large muscles that they are going to need to be able to write later. And it comes naturally, and the kids will do it. So with controlled scribbling, we start to notice the kids which-handed they are. And those strokes are going to become penmanship later. And they are learning how to control the materials. So when small children spend their time on an iPad, they don't have any sense of how hard you need to push down on a pencil. And it's a very tactile experience. And there's a whole lot of information they learn by doing that. And the first time that I had a kindergartner come into my class, he didn't know how to use an eraser. And they're swiping on the paper, thinking that's going to correct the things. Seemed really cute at first. But then I started becoming alarmed and going, oh my gosh, what's happening here? They did not know how to use the basic material. So how can you ask a child to write when they haven't even experienced this? So here, when we get to this point where kids are creating the verbal stories, and remember, this is verbal development for them. Look, they've already got the drawing going. The verbal lacks behind that, but they are starting to see objects. And also, children at this age do not live in the same reality that we do. And they are working in a totally different, magic. All those things are very real to them. We don't have the development of the analytical brain yet. So there's not really a difference between what they're doing and reality that they're living in. They just live in a completely, it's in the zone. They live in the zone all the time. So once we've got scribbling, then where children start to do is when they can close an object, making closed shapes, and they're doing that on their own. That's where we're starting. They're not quite ready for all the lettering yet, but that'll come because they're interested in certain things, and it's their interest, not your interest, not the adult's interest. And they are being driven internally to do this. And, they draw lots of smiley faces because what have they looked at? They've been looking at you, your parents and caregivers. That's the most important thing they see. And you see it getting, they are not making, this is not childish. This is actually very mature, that they are taking what they're doing and actually putting it to paper. This is very complex thinking happening. So when we get to symbolism, kids now they're focusing longer, and that's what we're aiming for as we're going towards preschool and kindergarten. And we see the development of tadpole people. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more because I love them so much. But this is when our granddaughter was Frozen was the major thing. We heard her sing Frozen like 17 times a day. She didn't want to write her own name, but she did ask how to spell Elsa. So you can see what's important to your child, and we're not expecting them to draw, full-blown pictures with everything going on. Things float around, and for them, their sense of proportion is not ours, and we can't really impose that upon them. Just enjoy where they are, because they are in a very distinct developmental stage, and you can see what they're thinking by what they're putting on the paper. But that's why they've got to have the opportunity to put it on the paper. Well, as we are now getting ready for preschool, but kindergarten, this is where the kids should be drawing. And so they, you would maybe like them to draw things in a different way, but they figure out the basic stuff, and they're going to draw it that way for several years. But that's to them what a house looks like. And that's your house. And you may say, but that's not the color of our house. It's not, that doesn't matter. For the child, they are processing it themselves. And with the little boy here on the end, when kids can actually put objects and they're creating a baseline, we are ready to read. So a baseline, it can come about in different ways, but they're actually trying to sit things on the baseline rather than floating in space. And we have a lot longer attention span, but see, their attention span develops naturally to doing this thing that's coming from them themselves. So when I, for instance, work with a kindergarten teacher, a first grade teacher, and the class comes in like in the early days of the year, I give the kids all the same drawing project, like, draw your family, or we draw a tree, because we can see right in the drawings who's on grade level, who's beyond that. You can put them already into an advanced reading group, and the kids that need help. Now, it used to be years ago, if I saw kids drawing like they were still working at the 3-year-old level, but here we are in first grade. Okay, so there's a delay here of something, and get tested now. We don't have to wait till 3rd grade, which in some districts, we wait till 8. No, you can tell it immediately in the drawings. And but with the handheld electronics and people not giving kids drawing stuff, when I see that they're drawing very young, now we have to really look at a lot of different things. Is it a learning delay, or is it the fact that the kids never were given the materials, which, we used to have them. That was just standard, but it's surprising how much that has changed. So let's talk about the development of people, because you can really tell where kids are developmentally too. I love tadpole people. And people think those are immature drawings, but you're thinking this is a 3-year-old, maybe even younger, drawing what they see. Who do they see? Their parents. Who are you? You're a big head. You have been in their face since the time they were born. And then they're really short. And you look like you have great, huge, long legs to them. This is perfect perspective. This is not making fun or calling it childish. This is amazing perception on their part, and feeling drawn to actually capture you. And there you are with your big face, and they're working, they start to really analyze, look, that they are figuring out their arms, and where do your arms come from? Well, they don't even see those for the first part of their life because you're holding them, right? So they are observing, give them the materials. Chalkboards are great. Give them the materials to practice this. So they need to draw people, and that is our most important thing. And for kids too, you're the most important factor. When we see kids drawing humans in 6 parts, we're ready to read. That is a developmental stage. And look how much they've accomplished, how much they've observed, how much time they've spent drawing that. And then little details start to come along, and we start getting the round fingers, and things aren't floating in space so much. And they start to get a proportion. Oh, my parents are big and we are little, but when we're smaller, we're the important thing, or something else is important. They will get that. So when I'm giving kids art every week, I'm not trying to make them to be better artists. We may have a problem to solve. We may do, we're drawing and coloring and all and learning how to use the materials, but we need to let them be where they are because they've got to draw through to the next stage. So now when we're getting to the kids in kindergarten, and it's going to be all over the place. So some kids, they're already drawing like this and they're 5. They look like they are geniuses, but it tells me they have had a lot of practice and a lot of exposure to materials. Very hard to judge now, especially where at middle school. So when I taught middle school and you have an intake of kids at 6th grade, who has been severely impacted are boys. It's just been really alarming to me to see them not even drawing at this stage, and we're 11. And when we don't give kids those skills, they come to feel, well, their work is immature. At that point, you do have an analytical mind, and you are seeing that your stuff is looking way young, and you compare to adult things. So it's really important that we keep kids moving along here so they are ready to tackle the other subjects that are going to come along at this level. And when they don't have that, it's just this continuous struggle. Now, I imposed some drawing milestones on, this is the CDC information. So, pardon me, you can get this on .gov. And this is what teachers and pediatricians, everybody's, checklists of what kids can do at a certain age. And I put in pink the only reference they were making to art or drawing. And I don't like art as art. It needs to be really specific drawing. And so I imposed my drawing milestones onto these charts. So this is what kids should be able to do with a pencil or crayon as they are marching forward, getting ready to kindergarten. So things that you look for, and as you're just letting them draw, and they'll come back to stuff, and it is not linear. Kids do stuff that interests them, they go back, they go forward, and it's not to be alarmed. It's just we're looking for certain things, and then you're going to be moving to the next age group because I put in the milestones that basically, happen at that age, or that you're looking for. Might not happen at 2. Like for a little boy coming into our house who was 5, he hadn't gone through any of this, and you have to go through it. And how do you catch the kids up? And kids coming from homes, sometimes we want to say it's because they're disadvantaged, but I've taught at very elite schools with clientele who we don't do art because it makes the rugs messy. I don't have white carpeting, we don't do this stuff. And the kids, it doesn't matter. They need to work through this. And school is not prepared to give that kind of time. And so that's why I feel it's really important that parents get this information before kindergarten, because, sometimes you hear people say, oh, they'll get it at school. This you don't, because this is so time intensive. School can't make up for what didn't happen for that child, because, hey, you've got state curriculum and you have to get moving on it. And it's a train and it's leaving the station. And we want to make sure that all those kids will have a successful time in school by just picking up a pencil or a crayon. Now, I've certainly seen school become far more demanding on what we're asking of small children. And it's been hard to watch. It's been hard to teach. So right now, kids at 4, where we're expecting them to be able to come in at 4, those pre-writing skills, because everything right now is focused on writing. So they need the drawing time to do strokes and you got to work through circles and diagonals. You should be picking up scissors. I have so many parents horribly alarmed, even at kindergarten, that I'm expecting the kids to cut, but they might hurt themselves. Well, yes, we use blunt scissors, and yeah, you might a little bit because that's part of it. But generally, I've never had fingers cut off, hair maybe, but these are things that are expected that kids are coming to school with. And this is stuff, if we know what's expected, then we can be doing these things at home. And, when you're reading to kids, look at all the stuff that's just happening naturally because you read with them. And you go to the grocery store and you might count the things you're putting in your cart, and all of that stuff happens. but we're not paying as much attention to that drawing where the writing expectation. Now let's look at the jump that happens in kindergarten. Already knowing your ABCs and how to handle a pencil correctly. And this talking about the way kids handle a pencil, we see some of this kind of grip. We see all the different grips that kids go through. That is normal and natural. And they will work that through themselves. And part of it is as they are making more fine drawings, their grip changes. But you have to have gone through all of that. And your fine motor skills are already established. Now, my friend who's a kindergarten teacher, current one, she says, I just can't believe I'm having to teach kids how to color. They do not know how to color. How you start out, how you do any of that, because they're spending a lot of time. And this is at a school where kids would be having iPads from the time they're, 1. So look at how much we're doing. And we are expecting kids now to be able to be in a classroom where the teacher's in front of the class and talking instead of, and all the little group things. And that is a skill to be able to see what the teacher's doing on the board and doing it yourself. That comes, you have the practice already to be able to see it and to do it. We can't just assume that just happens. So that's why we're seeing more kids being held back in kindergarten. And it bothered me tremendously to see kids getting labeled special ed because of this. So here we were back. This is me. I'm the little girl in the front with the headband. And how did boomers get ready? You know what? There was always coloring, and the little kids sat at the table with the big kids who were coloring, and that is a skill, and you just kind of learned it. And a lot of the stuff that we did, making med pies and all that stuff, kids aren't getting so much of that experience anymore unless it's happening. That freedom that we had is not the same. So can we build that into our programs or at home to make sure that kids are getting it, just being aware that that's important. So my mission is I want little kids 2 through 5 at home drawing 10 minutes a day so that they can get to the stage 3 development where we need them to be at kindergarten, because first grade was shoved down into kindergarten. So kindergarten is the new first grade. And what we're asking of those kids intellectually, yes, a lot of them can do it. But if you haven't developed all this hand skill, and that drawing is a thinking skill, and they need to go through that so they are ready for this next phase. We also need to really educate our pre-K and nursery teachers when they only have 12 units. Believe me, what I'm talking about is not covered in that. And we really need to make an emphasis on this because we are putting so much emphasis on writing. So that is my presentation for today on scribbling. And you know what? I encourage you to scribble and color. Look at the renaissance we had of adult coloring books. It is such a need. And it was our first way of communicating when we were small. And you may think about where you were in 6th grade and what didn't happen for you, because what we need to do when you're 10 is teach realism. There's a human development hump that happens there. And I hear kids now clear down at 3rd grade and 4th grade when art teachers coming in, instead of being excited, they're scared. And I can't do this. And they're running up to you and telling you, I can't do this. I'm going, how are you 8 and telling and making this decision for yourself and making a decision that is really going to affect you? And how many women I talk to in particular who always say, I'm not creative. And yet when I go to craft fairs, that creativity has to come out. It's there, but we're freaked out about the drawing. So if you go on to my website and go to the preschool tab, there's a free download there of the people drawing milestones. So you can see where your child is, maybe where you are. And then there are also those government charts that you can pick up there too. And I just want to thank you so much for helping to get the word out and to value this and value it within yourself. And that if you've got small children in your life, to really value what they're doing with that, and that we are getting ready for preschool and kindergarten. So thank you for your attention. And now I will stop screen sharing. I hope. Let's see if I can do that. Okay. So
Tracy, I just want to thank you so much. And you know what? The adult coloring books are so much fun. But you know what? Another trick I want to say is my 6-year-old and I love doing a page together. So she'll do the
awesome.
top half and I'll do the bottom half. And it's just so much fun to do with her. And she loves like putting in the right colors. And it's just
I love it.
so much fun for us to do together as well. And a
And
little
you're
bit more
so right.
detail and some more fine for her to do with me. And then we just have fun.
Well, so much fun as a female doing that, because look at where you've cut off somewhere. And what I really encourage parents to do is get a sketchbook that goes flat, and you do a page, but your child is drawing with you, but you don't correct them. Like what, it's you're having your own drawing experience, and maybe you're drawing oranges that you saw at the store, but pretty much little kids are not as, your older ones will say, mine doesn't look as good as yours. We want the kids, it's not making them a better artist. It's just giving them the time with you is so important.
What's your take on tracing?
So tracing is a skill, but I was always really fussy with the school kids, because of course they want to trace and make their projects look good. Because here's the thing for them is you're going to get graded on something that you haven't had much experience with. And you're asking a teacher who their specialty is writing or history, not in art development. And they're going to grade you on how good it looks. So there's that pressure of feeling like that's the way to do it. And it's really hard to turn in something that looks immature, because they're going to give you a bad grade on it. So there is that real tendency. And so in a school where I can really work with the teachers is we don't accept any traced material. Now, I know tracing letters and all that stuff is, part of really small children curriculum. In my world, it's give them blank paper so that they are creating themselves, because they'll come to it. Yes. And then when we're really working on, fine stuff. The other problem, just to mention this is a little separate from this, is because we dropped cursive because you couldn't test it on state tests, and just tests what you can measure. That has impacted kids so much because they've lost the fluidity and being able to do a large amount of things. Like when you get to 6th grade and you've got to write 30 essays, you've lost that skill. So anyway, I used to feel like I was a dinosaur about this, but I feel like I've only been proven. It's been proven to be true, especially with Gen X being, really observing what's happened. So anyway, let me stop, and then let me stop sharing.
Add something here, Tracy, with what you're saying there. And I worked with the pre-K, and we had a change in our programming. And it used to be that we would make projects for them to put together kind of thing. And it ended up being we were doing all the work and everything.
That's right.
And but then we changed it so that we just set out all the materials, and like a whole range, like the bits of clay, there'd be crayons of all different, colors. There would be popsicle sticks. There'd be like a whole range, and just left it for them to create whatever they wanted. And at first it was like, the kids often wouldn't know what to do, but it like you might give a little sample of trying something here, and then it's just amazing what they come up with, the ideas they come up with. And the thing was, when we had them drawing pictures, and I always ask the question, so tell me about it.
Because then they're practicing the verbal. Yeah. And it's it doesn't look like adult produced. And if we're grading on the result instead of the process, the kids are missing out on the process. Like you said, the adults are doing everything and work, wearing themselves out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to now, what are you seeing? Are you seeing my screen still up? Because I am. I can't get. Let me get out of this thing. How do I? Okay, let me get out of this here. I know.
No, you're not sharing anymore. You weren't.
I'm not sharing. Okay. All right.
You can go ahead and introduce Sandy.
Okay, now I just have to find my introduction where it went. Well, well, Sandy, I am so excited to be introducing you because Sandy did something that it was pretty remarkable. When she was young, she and her husband committed themselves to becoming foster parents and then adopting 4 special needs kids who they raised to adulthood, and 2 of them have kids of their own. And through that time, she was not, it was pre-internet, and she had to spend years going through all kinds of government red tape to get the help that the kids need. And all of that knowledge she has in her business that she helps parents free of charge be able to do that. She also has a wonderful coaching program that she'll talk to you about. And we just are so happy that Sandy, you overcame the technical difficulties and you're here. And she's going to talk to us about challenging behaviors with kids. And she is an expert on it. And I know we're going to just all gain so much from hearing Sandy help us through some of the challenges that we parents and teachers face with kids. So Sandy, welcome to Workshops for Moms.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Michelle, for having me. I'm so blessed to have this opportunity with you all. I've had such a blessed life. It's been an amazing journey. It's been tough at times. We, as Tracy said, chose the path that not many people walk. We chose to take in foster children that not other people would take in. Our foster children were locked in institutions, and their parents had put them there because of behaviors. And these were young kids. And so my first husband and I would go meet them, and we would decide, and the majority of times we could not say no, to bring them into our home and work with them and listen to their behaviors. And that's the first thing I want to say. Listen to the behavior, because every child, I don't care what the age is, even a newborn, a toddler, a preschooler, whatever the age, when they're having a behavior, they're telling you something. And that's what Larry and I learned to do, was listen. What is this behavior telling us? And then we would learn to monitor those behaviors. So what happened before the behavior? What was going on? What was behavior? And what happened afterwards? How did we respond to the behavior? And as a result of our response, what happened? So sometimes we got it right. Sometimes we got it wrong. Sometimes they just needed us to listen. Sometimes they just needed some alone time. Sometimes they just needed to scream. Because a lot of times kids are in turmoil, especially children with challenging behaviors, because their brains are sending them so many signals at the same time. They don't know what their brain's saying, so they just want to scream. So give them a safe place, let them get it out. and tell them it's okay. They're safe. I used to hold Lisa when she was 4.5. I would hold her in a rocking chair and just rock her and let her scream and kick and say, I love you. And that's all I would say to her. She had been so abused. She had been held under a scalding shower when she was 6 months old, had beaten on the floor for punishment, her leg broken. That child had been so abused. She didn't know how to deal with all that trauma, and her behaviors were her way to communicate that to me. So I just had to hold her and tell her she was loved. And sometimes that's all they need. They just need love. They need security. They need to know they have a place to call home. They need to know you're going to be there for them, no matter what. No matter what they do, you love them. Even if it's the worst day. Even the day that Lisa tried killing me. Did it mean I didn't love her? No. I still loved her. But I knew it was time for her to have a placement. So as a parent, I had to make that hard choice that other parents had to make. So, parents make hard choices, and I get that. But when it comes to behaviors, you need to find the root causes. And the root cause is first listening to that behavior. No matter what the age, you need to listen. And if you can't figure it out, then you need to get professional help. And there's always someone in a community, your community or community near you. And if you can't find that person, contact me and I'll help you find that person. Because it's critical that you and your child get professional help if you can't figure it out. Because when your child is little, all those behaviors are going through, that's trauma. And if that trauma, just like Tracy was talking about, those stories, if that trauma is not worked on when they're little, then that grows up with them. And that becomes juveniles. That's when they become persons of the system. They get into trouble. And it's because they have all this hurt and pain locked inside of them from their childhood. It's unresolved trauma. And we need to deal with it when they're little, not when they're teenagers. Let's deal with it when they're little. So I encourage all parents to become what I call a behavior detective. Put your detective hat on, just like I used to, is they'll do with my grandson and figure out what is this behavior telling me? Because they're not going to tell you. So you've got to figure it out. And you can also ask questions. Ask them simple questions about their day. When they're older, you can do that. When it's an infant in a crib, you can't. When it's a toddler, had a bad day at school, you can ask them, what happened at school? Did you go to Miss Tracy's class? Did you color? Would you color? And if they colored and they brought it home, what are those colors? Colors can show you a lot about how they're feeling. It's a whole thing about color therapy. The darker the colors, the more upset they are. The lighter colors, the more happier they are. That's one reason why I always liked to color with all the kids in my care. They didn't like it sometimes, but I encouraged them to do it because it was key into their subconscious. It was a key into knowing how they were feeling by knowing what colors they were choosing, not necessarily what they were drawing, but just the colors. So it's just a little technique that you can use. You can also do it with building blocks. Get a bunch of building blocks out. Have them build something. What colors are they choosing? How are they building it? Are they doing it carefully? Or are they doing it in a hurry? Like they're mad. Can they express what they're building and why they built it? And for little boys, they're usually into cars. So maybe they'll tell you about their cars and why they have certain cars. There's a whole series of things you can do with play therapy. And you don't have to be a therapist to do it. Just take their favorite toys and start asking questions. Even girls, ask them about their dolls. Why did they put that dress on that doll? Or if they're playing a certain game on their iPad, why are they playing it? What do they like about it? Get curious with the kids. Get involved. You want to be an involved parent. You don't want to be a parent that's detached. The more involved and interested you are with the kids, the more connected they're going to feel to you. And that connection is going to be heart-centered. They're going to feel that love of yours. And you're not going to have to say, I love you, that's why I'm doing this. because they're going to feel it. They're going to feel you being genuine with them. They're going to feel you wanting to be with them, not that you're in a hurry to play with them. They're going to feel that you really, really want to spend some time with them. If you have several children, maybe have play dates with one child at a time. It's another special thing you can do. And that way, each child will feel equally important. They will feel like, oh, I got some mom time or dad time today. It was my time. And celebrate that time together. It doesn't have to be a whole day. It could be an hour. It can be a trip to the dollar store. Kids love the dollar store. The important thing is you're spending time together. And you're going to see a decrease in behaviors. The more connected you are to your child or your children. And I'm trying to think of more things that I can share with you. I just am so thrilled to be here. And one thing I do want to say is our children are so intuitive. Don't, if they tell you they're seeing things, ask them about it. If they say they see someone, ask them about it. Be curious about it. Let that part of them blossom. Don't be afraid of it. It could be their angel. They could help you discover your intuition that somebody told you to hide when you were a child. I know my parents tried telling me that I was crazy, but my great grandma Nora kept whispering in my ear, "No, you're not." And she was right. So everybody has a guardian angel, including our children. So please don't deny them that blessing. So with that, I will ask Michelle if she has any questions.
Well, first of all, thank you, Sandy. And I always just feel your heart when you share about your life, and it just touches me so much. And your wisdom and intuition and everything, I just really generally appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. I do want to have you recap for us. I was really fascinated by how you called the behavior detective. And I would love you to lay that out for us one more time with the questions that you should have, that we should ask ourselves as we're doing that. So maybe if moms didn't get it right the first time, they'll have a chance to write it down this time. But like just to go through that checkoff list that you had, because it was great the way you mentioned what's the behavior telling me, and then all the steps you took to discover that behavior, and you asked those questions. Am I ringing a bell?
Yeah, just take time to understand the behaviors. So what happened, what was going on prior to the behavior, then describe the behavior. And what was your reactions to the behavior? And then what happened after your reactions? And then what you can do once you start logging all that is when you're working with a professional, you can take that document to the professional and they can begin looking for sequencing and seeing what is going on. That's a very important tool. And I've used that so many times with several of the children in my care.
That's amazing. I think that's something I need to do a little bit more specifically, because I've never heard it like in those terms directly of how you laid out the different steps. So I've been told before, oh, well, you know, just track what they're doing or this or that. And you might have this log, but I love the way you break it down, and also looking at your reactions to the child and what you're in reaction with them as well. Because we don't necessarily put that in there. It might just be, what is the child doing, but not it's the whole atmosphere to figure it out, not just what the child's doing, but how we do, how we're interacting with them and what that effect has on them.
Right. Yeah, because it's about the whole environment. It's not just the child, it's also you. Because remember, the child's going to respond to you and how you're responding to their behavior. So if I would raise my voice in response to a behavior, their response is going to be different than if I use a calm voice in response to their behavior. So that's critical information.
And also, also just as you were saying that, I was also thinking also, as long as also knowing our own triggers, like what behaviors of the child really trigger us, and what can we do as the adults to work on the triggers.
Yes, that's a good point, Michelle. What are our triggers?
So Sandy, when you were working with your children and in a, you know, are you calling their behavior to their attention, or you're just monitoring it for yourself and going through this? Or are you talking to them about the way they're behaving? You might not be able to talk to them in the minute it's happening, but would you go back to them and go through all of this?
Yes. I would, depending on the situation, I would first of all make sure they're safe. That's always the first thing. But then once they have calmed down, we would sit down and discuss the situation, why it happened, what they thought was going on, what they were feeling. Now, some of the kids didn't have the cognitive level to express their feelings. So that was difficult for them. But some did. And though those individuals could tell me, you know, I had all these thoughts going on in my head, and I was responding to the thoughts in my head. But now Lisa, for example, she couldn't tell me that. All she does is scream, "Leave me alone," and nobody's there. So it just depends on, that's why it's so important to know the individual and to really be that detective and to track these behaviors and to really hone in on them so that you get an idea, what are these behaviors about? What are they trying to tell us? Because these behaviors are communication of some type. People don't just have a behavior. That just doesn't happen. Our brain doesn't just impulse like that. Our brain has a behavior for a reason. And it's up to us to help the person understand their behavior.
Well, you just see how well you could do, how much better we could do in situations, right?
Easier said than done, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is so, you have such a calm demeanor because I'm sure you have faced just a deluge of bad behavior from more than one child. And
Yes.
you're so calm about it now. Did you always have that calm demeanor? Or you've
Yes,
learned
I've
this?
always had a calm demeanor, but I have had a lot of challenges. Lisa has 3 traumatic brain injuries. Paul was locked in a room for 6 years. So, I mean, I and the people we brought out of institutions, oh my gosh, one child pulled a knife on another child. So, I mean, yeah, I've had my moments.
Oh my gosh. Well, you are one of the saints in this world, for all those kids that have benefited from you and taking them in. So it's nice to know a saint.
Well, I don't know if I'm a saint, but I will say our success rate was about 90% of getting all the foster kids back to their homes.
Wow. And so kids that come so traumatic, it is amazing that they try to put them back in the homes that caused all that trauma because the adults don't
Well,
have the training to deal with it.
well, we didn't just put them back in the homes.
Mm.
We worked with the parents as well.
Mm.
So we wouldn't let kids just go back to their homes. Larry and I also worked with the parents to understand their child.
Yeah. So they got placed, and I hope they grew up good.
They did.
Awesome.
Larry, my ex-husband, actually still has contact with many of the kids.
Wow.
Not kids anymore, I'm sure.
Yeah, adults.
Yeah, yeah. So it's heartwarming to know that we were able to affect their lives on a long-term basis.
Wow. And
Well,
you need to be cloned.
yeah.
Well, Larry's still involved with Special Olympics. He's still involved in the work that we started. So he's very, very determined to keep up. So
It's amazing. Did you have a question or comment, Willa?
Yeah, I appreciate Sandy the simplicity of when Michelle was questioning you as far as describing the behavior and describing what happened just before it, because with these kids, with whether it's traumatic brain injury, whether it's horrific childhood trauma, their triggers, I mean, they could be dealing with, like, a smell could trigger them, just a touch, like it's triggers can be multisensorial, right? And so the thing is it may not have been
yes,
you at all, And there's where, you know, your simplistic way of saying, consider the environment. Because, you know, if you can nail, it could be the smell of chicken noodle soup on the stove, and they get triggered back to a childhood horrible experience, right? And you know, and you can,
Right.
with communication, you can figure it out, and oh, the breakthrough that you get, you know, a chicken noodle soup. Okay, we got to go on yellow alert when we cook chicken noodle soup, right? With all those triggers,
Yeah, I have an example of that. Well, my son Paul, he, Larry, I, and Paul were going camping, and we were taking our German Shepherd, and we always put Snoopy on a log chain because he always got off all the other chains. And so we picked up the log chain, and Paul just immediately started choking his neck. And we just freaked out. And Larry dropped the chain, and Paul was okay. And we're like, what the heck? And when we got back from camping, we told the caseworker about it. And she told us that Paul used to be put outside on a log chain.
Yeah. 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 There's the importance of your, you know, describing, you know, what is happening, and then the importance of our reactions to it. You know, it's critical, right? Like you
It
said,
is.
raise your voice, and it, you know, you've lost because the child is just trying to communicate, you know, what is going on in their life, right? And we've, you know,
Yeah.
love them.
And with Paul, he's nonverbal, so he can't tell us
Right.
what's going on. So, yeah.
Lovely.
Well, we're all recovering from this. Oh, Michelle, you're going to pull us all together here?
Yeah, she's the connection babe,
I will do my best, but Sandy, my
Would you
heart
like
goes.
to-
our connector.
Sandy, would you like to introduce Michelle?
Sure, Michelle's the mother wizard. She's the angel of all of us. Michelle has orchestrated the Moms for Moms. And I'm just so impressed with Michelle because I just can't see enough good things about Michelle. I just am delighted to share the same stage with Michelle. And every time I get to hear her speak, I learn something new. And I'm so grateful to Michelle for starting this group. And I'm glad that she is sharing this with all the moms around the world, because we moms, we need this education, and we need the light that Michelle is shining. So, Michelle, take it away.
Thank you, Sandy, for that amazing introduction. I don't even know what to say now. On that note, though, I do think we do need to take a moment to pause. I'm going to share my screen, and some of you are familiar with this chart, some of you are not. But we are going to, can everyone see it? We good? Everyone can see my screen right now? Thumbs up? Yes, thank you.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So take a look at this chart. It comes from Permission to Fill in Mark Brackett. This is always my check-in place to figure out, especially after hearing the emotional story of Sandy and stuff, how are we feeling this moment? So it's a good place to check in. It's a good thing. And last time when I was talking about this chart, Tracy pointed this out and asked me, do I use this with my kids? And the answer is yes. Not as much as we like, but they do know this chart, and they know this chart, not a kid version, because I looked at kid versions and saw that this was just better to start with. I mean, we started just talking about colors and what the colors meant, and they worked our way to like even just pointing in a direction and then talking about the vocabulary. So I do use this with my kids, but I'm just going to take a second to close my mouth. We're going to take a deep breath together, take a look at the chart, and if anyone wants to type in the chat or unmute and tell how they're feeling, we'll have that moment to do so. So on that note, let's just take in a deep breath together, ground in a little bit together. And let's give a big let it out. We're gonna do it one more time because I think we need that. And if anyone wants to put it in the chat and or on mute, let us know where you're at right now. Let's just check in. Don't all type at once. I will start by saying that Sandy's words of wisdom actually gave me a calm feeling for everything that she's been through, but the sense and presence that she brings actually brought me more calm, and knowing and now having new techniques to question and look at things just a little bit differently moving forward. And I think that's what this and working together and joining together and getting ideas from each other is all about. What's going to work for me? What can I take from that message and use for me and move myself and my family forward? And what can I share with others? So we have very emotional. Yes, Tracy has been through a lot last few days. Any actual feelings though? Want to identify it, Tracy? Maybe a little apprehensive, anxious still, or are we moving into the blue zone? Maybe
say, well, very irritated with supposedly the people who are the professionals, and not hearing what we, the adults, had to say, and just completely mowed over. And so we talk about listening to the kids, but these are supposed to be the professionals, right? And absolutely being treated so poorly. Highly irritated.
Well, it's ironic that you said that, because last night I was kind of going through this with my son. He had an altercation at school, but it brought back for him this feeling of helplessness that he had with his last principal. And just that feeling of anger that just came exuding from him because he still hasn't quite released it. So we were talking about maybe he needs to create another video or something for him, because him holding on to that anger, she's not losing any nights of sleep of what happened between them. And so we're like, what can you do to forgive and release and work towards that? But it is so hard, especially when you're coming from the adults and especially from having that her feelings towards him as a child and blaming him for something that happened to him. And just same thing with you, like having that situation with CPS and dealing with who are supposed to be the professionals and they're not listening. It's so involved in the system. And so we have those outside areas, and how do we deal with that? What do we do with that? And that's where we come to our chart, and we start with, where am I and where do I want to be? So we're going to see how you move through the chart today, Tracy. See if this guides you anywhere. Does anyone else want to? And we have thoughtful and calm. Thank you for sharing that, Trace. And so what we do in Workshop for Moms and any of these workshops is this is a safe space for us. This is for us to share with each other, where Tracy gets to share her feelings, I get to share my feelings, and it's all about coming together to acknowledge and to witness each other in these struggles and to figure out what can we do to help each other through this, because we're in this together. And that's the best part of Workshop for Moms, is that we know that motherhood shouldn't be done alone, and we're here to support each other. So everyone put their hands up, and I just want to say congratulations, because you showed up, and it's time to rediscover that spark because you showed up. And that's the first step, is that we took this time and we said, it's for me. I had all my kids screaming out there, and I knew my husband was supposed to be home. Like, well, they're supposed to be home. This is my time. I'm not dealing with that. They can run around loose for 20 minutes before he gets in. I could hear him whipping the rope as soon as he came in because we were all over the place. I'm like, hey, that's them. This is my time. This is our time to be together. And so that's kind of that focus time. We set that up. Let's congratulate ourselves for doing that. It does not seem to want to move forward. There we go.
Aw.
And this is my favorite part, is because we get most joy out of laughter and smiling. And sometimes we have to fake it to make it, but sometimes just, this is the part I love. We get to watch Little Face for All Moms is what it was all about. And I'm not sure why it's not playing, but that's okay. That baby gave us such a big smile. So let's take 30 seconds, got the clock on right now, and just put a smile on your face. Let's do that together. Take a look at the gallery and see each other smiling. That's what it's all about. Getting that adrenaline, that motion going, those adrenal glands working in us a little bit, getting that smile going, and we're going to work on moving through this together because we are here together. So it's so much fun to smile with you ladies. So a little bit about myself. I'm Michelle, as Sandy gave me that wonderful introduction. And my passion is all about creating connection and community, especially for us moms, because we need it. We used to be in a world where we were in villages and tribes, and somewhere along the way, we said, nope, we got to do this independently. We got to do this by ourselves. We got to know exactly what we're doing. And that is such BS, frankly. We need each other. We deserve each other. And we deserve to have some fun doing this and doing it together. And so I want to help support moms who have given so much to them, families, to themselves, and help bring that support back to each other so we can have some fun energy back into what we're doing. Some of the things I love to do is I love to travel. And somewhere along the line, when I was trying to figure out who I was again, I forgot how much I love to learn. And I think that's one of the things is, as we think, okay, well, we're done with school, we don't need to do any of that stuff. But now we gotta learn the things we want to learn. And it's fun. And one of the things I was trying to do over Christmas vacation again was I keep having this urge to want to learn to draw. Not that great, but I keep chipping away at it because it keeps coming back in my head. So like it's something I was working on. My middle daughter loved to draw. So I was sitting there one night, she didn't want to go to the pool. So her and I were just sitting there drawing. And it was just so much fun. And then loving to create. I love to create new projects. Mostly, I really just want to create a new community for moms for us to do this together. So my biggest focus right now is just learning how to be present in the moment that we have. Because honestly, that is all we have. The more we can be present with what we're doing, that's ultimately our goal in this journey, is to enjoy what we're doing in the moment. And here is my family. I have 3 kids. It's actually a little bit of an old picture. He just turned 12 on Christmas Eve. She's the middle one who loves to draw. She's 9 now, and Lily's my little 6-year-old. So this was when I became a mom. And in that moment, you had those 9 months where you're like, everything was kind of like, it might happen, it's going to happen, I know it's going to happen, but it wasn't reality yet until that baby, for me at least, was put in my arms. However, when he was put, before he was put into my arms, it was one of the more painful deliveries for me from the 3. And just the realization of everything and doing everything for the first time just seems a little bit harder, a little bit different. But 3 weeks after he was born, I didn't realize what it was. I just thought my uterus was closing or like some pains. No, I had an appendicitis. And so I was rushed to the hospital, and having the appendicitis in that point. And then as they found the appendicitis, they realized I had a hernia in my umbilical hernia as well. So they tried to stitch that. They tried to put staples in it because they couldn't do the mesh with the repairs and everything. So a couple months after that, I had yet a second surgery. So the reason why I say this is already in the beginning of my motherhood, I had to ask for help in these periods because he was already, by the time I had the second surgery, he was too big for me to lift up for 6 weeks. And so for me, right away, I had to start to learn to ask for help. And that was really hard for me. But I know that that is so hard for other moms as well. Like as soon as someone asks you for help, sure, I'll do that for you. But to sit there and say, I need help, that's a hard thing. And so I learned that hard way right away But then because I had to do it, that it made me feel uncomfortable about it, that I didn't want to do it until I realized that it's not about asking for help. It's about doing things together. And that's where my idea of this community of connecting moms and workshop for moms comes into play. Because when we're working together and asking questions and stuff, it's not that need or that bad feeling and that shame that I need help. No, it's that we're in this together and you have something that I might not know about yet, but I have some information to offer too. So it's that exchange of lifting each other up. And that's what made me want to create this, is because somewhere in there, I lost who I was. I was so busy taking care of them. And then all of a sudden it was like, who am I anymore? And I felt this fog over me all the time. I felt unfocused. I felt like I didn't have any energy anymore. And I was like, what do I do with myself? And that's kind of when I made the shift. It was actually on September 1st of 2020. On that day was the day that I decided to homeschool my kids because of COVID for the year. I thought eventually turned into forever, but did not. And I started a program called the 75 Hard. And so it was in this day where I decided that I needed a shift. And I went pretty dramatic on my shifts, like really piling it on. But it was finally the program that I stuck with. My husband kind of almost looked at me and goes, you're really going to do all that? And he kind of waited for me to like not do it. And I stuck through it for the year. It's one of those programs where you're supposed to do everything on the checkoff list. And if you don't do it, you start back at day one. Anyways, there's 3 phases towards the end that gets you through a full year. Picture this. I'm in phase 3. So 5 days, phase 3, day 25. I'm 5 days away from finishing this year-long program. And one of the things is you're supposed to read for 10 pages at least a day. And you're supposed to take this picture every day so you have this accountability and you can see your growth along the way. Because if they don't force you, then you might not keep track of it. So I must have been reading my book and fell asleep reading the book. I woke up at 2:30 in the morning and realized I had not taken my picture for the day. That is the only thing I had not done. Mind you, in this phase, you would take a 5-minute cold shower, you got to keep to your diet, you would exercise twice a day. But the one thing I hadn't done was taking a picture. And I woke up at 2:30 in the morning going, oh my God. So I have this picture, which did I put it? I don't think I actually, no, I need to add that back to the slide, but I have the picture of me at day 25, taking it at 2:30 in the morning with my jammies, just so angry at myself. I got back into bed and I was frantic. My husband's like, what the heck is going on? It's 2:30 in the morning. Why are you so upset? I'm like, I didn't take my picture. He's like, well, go take it. Who cares? I'm like, but I already went to sleep. Now I can't do this anymore. I'm 5 days away from finishing this year and it's all over. And in hindsight now, that was almost a blessing because it wasn't necessarily about the finish line. It was this journey that I had been taking all along to get to where I was. I had already lost 50 pounds. I had already changed my habits. I had already done all these things I wanted to do, but also it was like, I didn't get to my finish line. My friends had calmed me down and I ended up finishing out the 5 days, and it's a gray zone whether I finished or not. You know what? It doesn't matter, because what matters was the journey and the progress. And that's where I come to you with now, moms, is that we need to give ourselves grace and we need to help each other get to the goals that we set. But the goals isn't the end goal. It's enjoying the journey along the way. And the way to enjoy it is to do it together. So on that note, what do some of these feelings, these pictures and feelings invoke in you by looking at them? You can either share out loud or just throw it in the chat.
It's kind of, to me, it's like, oh, not again. And that it's like, what now do I have to face? It's like, oh, frustration.
Yes, that frustration, that overwhelm, not again. What are they doing? These kids are just going to make me pull my hair out, right? So that leads us into this idea of this overwhelm and this feeling. And then one of the things before we move, kind of conclude with that, I want to just throw in some of these results. So along my journey in doing this, I sent out a survey to any mom that wanted to take it. I got about 100 different responses from random moms and stuff. And some of these feelings were about friendship and that feeling. But one of the things that came across the most, which I found was most profound, is I probably feel the most disconnected to moms and other human beings than I ever have been before. And if we look back at those pictures, that overwhelm feeling and stuff. And a lot of that comes from the disconnect. We're disconnected with our friends, we're disconnected with our kids, and we're wondering, where did this come from? Part of it, when we look at and think about it, is we now live, hey Ren, have to say hi. We live in these little boxes. We drive these little boxes, and if someone says hi to you, you go like this, right? And so we have these habits of keeping to ourselves, of this disconnection, and they are learned behaviors. They are habits, because back in the day, we had villages, we had tribes where all the women worked together. They cooked together. All the kids play together. We don't have it now. Now we have activities and go, right? So when we look at friendship, though, one of some of the things that they wanted was no judgment. We want that support. We want that positivity. We want someone who's not afraid to call us out because we're not living to our potential. We want acknowledgement of our struggles and difficulties. The acknowledgements are different than let's go down the negative rabbit hole. So I've seen that a lot with moms too. Whereas let's make that comparison of who had the worst day, whose kid threw up the most, and then it just piles and piles in that negativity pile. So yes, we do share the struggles, but it's not that negative train. We have ongoing support, encouragement, and active listening through the lens of compassion. Let's not fix each other. Let's listen to each other. Let's acknowledge each other. Let's help each other figure out what we need to do. Not to say, oh, I got this advice. This is the best thing I've ever heard. And so we need to work on that. And again, these are all learned behaviors, things that we need to focus on and work on together. So women tend to put themselves low on the priority list. Anyone here do that? So it's hard to connect with other moms when you don't put yourself on a priority list. So if you can make all the play dates for your kids, but you can't put time for yourself on the schedule, that shows that you're putting yourself low on the priority list. So let's take a little wisdom from Brene Brown. Love her. I can be myself when I know that I'm with people who recognize the inextricable, unnameable spiritual connection that is shared humanity, because belonging is not in jeopardy. And that's what Workshop for Moms is all about. That's what Connecting Mamas is about, is that we're not worried about belonging in these groups, because we are here to share who we are, what experiences we are having, not hiding and thinking what people want to hear from us. This is about identifying and working together to grow. So how do we connect? One of the things that I go through is a process called check-in. First one is we go back to curiosity, which, and then we have honesty, expectation, connection, keep listening, intentional. Now, we're just going to focus on the curiosity right now, because that's where it all starts. As I love how we had Tracy's presentation earlier, and with the scribbling and looking through the lens of our kids again, and what curiosity they had, because somewhere along the lines, we lost the curiosity. Your 3-year-old probably asks you more than 100 questions a day. How many questions do you ask a day? Maybe 1, maybe 2. And if it's a question, it's like, did you do your homework now? Not something that you're wondering about, right? We're talking about wonder questions. What are you wondering about as a mom? And if you forgot, honestly, the best place is to go to those kids of yours and look through their eyes. What are they intrigued by? To start to use that lens to figure out what you're intrigued by, which leads us to our starting point. Asking yourself, what is one thing I enjoyed today? Not what did I do today? Not what was on my to-do list? What did I complete? What did I accomplish? What did I actually enjoy? Now, for me, it was actually surprising. One thing I planned, because one thing is you plan to do. One of the things I planned for myself today was the last few days I've been meeting my son at middle school. It's a 10-minute walk. And before I was like, oh, I don't need to do it. I can keep working, it gives me an extra 20 minutes. But getting the fresh air and seeing his face light up because he's excited to see me, I'm like, I need to keep that going while he still is. I need to enjoy those moments. So that was something I planned. The unexpected thing I enjoyed today was I actually ended up doing a podcast early in the morning. I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but we did the podcast and then talked for another 20 minutes. And she has a Liam as well, who's older, who loves video and drama too. So maybe he could be a mentor for my Liam, but it was just the connections that we make. And so it's moving towards the things we enjoy. So if anyone wants to say something that they've enjoyed, oh, I love that Ren said she sat in her hammock today. Yes, taking a moment and figuring out something you want to do, maybe connecting with nature. Anyone else have anything they enjoyed today?
Enjoyed meeting you folks here today to be able to come and connect. And also, yeah, also I get into nature photography, and I found like every day is a photo adventure day, because there's always something out there when you look, and it's like we've got horror frost now, and a little woodpecker came and was digging on, our dog had bought up a bone on the deck, so it was right there digging at this bone, and it was, I just love that, seeing all the, yeah.
The other, it was before we went on break, but my girls all of a sudden wanted my phone one morning at the bus stop, and there was a puddle there, but they could clearly see the snowflakes in the puddle, and they wanted to snap pictures of the snowflakes. And that just made me think of you. But it's again, then we can see through what others are doing if we don't know what we are enjoying. Start just, it's that curiosity and being open to looking for what we enjoy doing again, and actually looking for it. Because when we put that question out there, then I'm blanking right now, but the brain function in our brain, it's 3 letters and I cannot think of it at the moment. No, I won't even try to say, but it will start, just like when you buy a new car. If you get a new van, you start to see that car everywhere. So when you put those filters out there, those pictures, those questions out there, your brain will start working to your advantage to answer them. And so when we start to find our enjoyment, we can seek more of it. So we have what's watching the snow and taking a break with the kitty. Yes, the kitties are so cute. Actually, on that note, my cat just walked in the room, just the door open, just to say hi.
There we go. Michelle, I don't use the chat, you know that. But my cat is one of my enjoyments on a daily basis. Watching her bladder is just bursting. She has to go outside, and I let her out the door and just watching her reaction to the weather, you know, whether it's a foot of snow or whether it's cold rain, whatever. So I go through that with her. She goes down underneath the deck and does her doo-doos and comes back. But it's just a moment, right? We want to save those moments. That's what I love about you, is you get me into the moment. That's where it's at, right?
Because that's ultimately all we have, right?
Yep.
And the more we have those special moments, the more joy, the happier we are. And honestly, the easier the work is. I was working on a blog today and I finished it probably in 20 minutes, which probably I would have struggled before and finished like, might have been an hour and a half or something for the part that I did. And it just, things start to flow more when we get into those phases and look for those things. So your homework then is to actually plan one thing tomorrow, to actually intentionally say, this is what I'm gonna do. Like I intentionally said, I'm going to go pick up my son today because I know that's going to bring me joy to see his face when I pick him up. And so now it's your job to plan one thing for tomorrow that you're intentionally doing for your enjoyment only. And again, it doesn't have to take an hour or 2. It can be a 10-minute thing. And so part of Connecting Mamas is I just had come up with missions igniting passions by growing from grace and connection. And I just want to read this to you because it really just comes from my heart to you ladies. When mamas gather with the intention of offering grace, magic happens. Grace allows us to get through the tough times together by lifting each other up, giving grace for making mistakes as we learn to do better. Grace for working to embrace the differences and learning from each other. Giving grace for mothering the best we can. At Connecting Mamas, we embrace grace to connect and support each other as we identify and live for our passions. Ultimately, it just comes down to creating that supportive environment where as women, we have this internal capacity just to offer so much grace to others, but we struggle to do it for ourselves. But when we get together It's almost like that bond of a circle doesn't allow you to not give it to yourself as well. And we support each other in reaching that and in coming to what do we actually want. And it's just the power of coming together that really, the connection that really brings that forth. And so I want to celebrate each of you today for joining me. So let's celebrate a little bit more, because we're going to work towards figuring out what we enjoy doing. We're going to intentionally pick one thing tomorrow, because right now you have a to-done list. Let's get rid of that to-do list at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you only have a done list. It doesn't matter with things you didn't get on the to-do list. You can add that for tomorrow morning. That's fine. Let's focus on things that we did today. We connected with each other. We have one action step for tomorrow already. We're going to find something intentionally to do that we enjoy. We have a done list right now, ladies. And we just celebrated ourselves, because that is a part, I have to admit, I forget as well. We're so busy doing that we forget to celebrate ourselves. But when we have each other to remind ourselves to do it, and we get to do it together, it's so much more fun. It's so much more fun to see your faces and sit here by myself going, ee. But when I have you doing it with me, it makes it all the difference. So Martha Beck tells us, I love her as well, to live a life that is wrong for you is a form of dying. There are people whose lives that look perfect. You've seen them on Facebook, you've seen them on Instagram, you see them everywhere, right? They try to be happy. They might have all the money, they might have all the stuff. They believe they should be happy. They are trying to like it, but it is off their North Star. They aren't satisfied. And that is the key, ladies, is that we need to figure out what is our North Star, because my North Star is different than Willow's. And we can't go for the self-help book that tells us these are the 6 steps that you need to do, because that 6 steps might work for that person who made it and maybe 100 other people or 1,000,000 other people, but my 9 might not be one of those people. So what we do is we come together to figure out, to support each other in that trial and error. Do I like journaling? Do I like meditating? What is actually going to help me move forward? Not the shoulds. Let's go with the things that we enjoy. Again, it's back to that curiosity. Do I enjoy writing? Do I enjoy getting those thoughts in my head? Do I enjoy meditating? Do I feel like I'm getting better at life because I was meditating? Those are the questions that we try to come together to answer together. We get a massage. I love that, Tracy. We do the things that we enjoy doing. And so as I work to find my North Star and rediscover my whole self, there were 2 things that really helped me along the way. Number 1, it's community. Because honestly, when we are bringing like-minded people together, we get better ideas and it's a lot more fun. And we get that acknowledgement of not acknowledge that, yeah, you did a really good job, but that validation of being witnessed by another human being. Because when you get witnessed by another thing, you get those thoughts out of your head. And if you declare you're going to do something, well, then you're going to be more likely to do it. If you're in that mindset where you're just spinning and circling all the negative thoughts, and you say it to another person, they kind of look at you, go, and they give you, by saying it out loud to another person, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that probably doesn't make sense. That doesn't really make sense once I get out of my head. But you need to do that in a community and having a mentor, because there's so many people who have already done a lot of this in front of us. So let's go do that with each other and help each other get to the next step. And so I want to offer you free access to my check-in course, which is if you just go to connectingmamas.com, on the very front page, you hit free course and you can get the check-in course where it will go through a video of each of these. So you can dive into each one of these and check in with yourself and then start to check in with others through this process. If you want to learn more about that, come sign in for a 30-minute mom check-in call. I've opened up a few slots. So if you also go to the same connectingmamas.com, there's a spot to click for the check-in to get a chat and get a time slot for that. So both are right there on the front page. And I just want to connect with you guys. My blog is on connectingmamas.com and I'm just about to revamp it and I'm so excited about rolling it back out. And just my biggest takeaway for you ladies is it really is about the connection. And we've been told so long way, oh, I need to join these groups or I need to do that. Let's start with the baby step. So my one more homework assignment for you is the next time that you're having a conversation, say like with your barista, getting your Starbucks, or at the grocery store, someone asks you where something is, ask them one more question or give them one more compliment. Just practice that connection. It is a learned skill. So it's just putting that extra effort out. You don't need to go to a big group or do anything. Just take the first step. Give someone a compliment, ask them a question, and see where it takes you. You never know. And you might just learn something from that person. So on that note, I have one last quote for you. Being vulnerable is hard, but I've learned that sharing our true, flawed, authentic selves is the only real way for connection and love that can happen. It's the only way to step into our full power and purpose in our lives. So let's do it. But remember, one last thing, you don't have to be vulnerable with everybody. Let's learn how to do it in a safe, constructive way to express ourselves and be those moms that we can be. So I want to thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Can you hear me? No, I can't hear
Sorry,
you.
yes.
There you go.
Thank you
There
so
we go.
much, dear. Can I come back for more?
Of course.
In your next group, am I still welcome too?
Yes. Well, I haven't started yet, but sorry, I forgot one last thing. How did I
What?
forget it? 1 second, because this was we have to end the way we started. Sorry, I'm going to share my screen again.
Oh,
I'm
right.
forgetful today.
Yes, right.
And just where are you at now?
Yeah.
Has anything changed? And it's okay if it hasn't, but it's again, just we keep witnessing ourselves. We're not judging. It's okay where we're at. It's deciding what we want to do about it. I lost my chat. For me, I feel actually really energized by being here with you ladies. And I really, that feeling, and I forget, and it makes me realize that this is really what I truly want to do, because the more I do this, I feel energized by speaking with you, by doing this with you and trying to provide and serve each of you. And so for me, I feel energized. Patrice feels motivated now. And so that's what this is all about, is coming together and supporting each other and moving each
And,
other in grace.
you know, well, and you're talking about energy, which sometimes that's very lacking with moms and teachers and, and everybody. But you know what? It's really through our energy that we connect. And even though we're not even in the same, we're in the same hemisphere, but aside from that, it's amazing that we have the technology and we can still feel connected and feel that, the energy is not it's not such a physical thing, but more of a mental thing, that we can have this and provide, connection and meet new women, and it's such interesting women with such interesting stories to share with other women. And that connection does. Yes, I've been really wanting to calm down today and it's just so interesting how being involved with this for the last few months, and really it hasn't been that long, but wow, how we've gotten to know, you just feel like you're really good friends, or you really have insight into people that are women that have been doing really interesting things, and now you feel a part of that. So that it's an energy, really interesting energy connection, because we also have the purpose to lift up others too. I mean, that's the ultimate goal of Workshops for Moms, so we get the uplift, and so do others, we hope. And we look forward to having them.
And of course, to love and be loved, right? That's so, the connection is so powerful that way. I mean, we all want to be loved. loved. We all want to love. And as moms, I mean, I've never been a mom, but my moms that I've been with over the decades, you know, who loves up mom? I mean, really, you know, and we have to, you know, that self-love, like you say, Michelle, getting us into the moment and getting us, what do I really enjoy today? You're nurturing that self-love. I'm worth a moment today. I'm worth taking time out for me to really
Yes, and you
experience
are.
joy, right? You know, I'm worth it. I am worth it, right? And that self-love is, you know, so critical for us. And I think that's what, you know, we kind of lose, you know, especially with our brains beating up on ourselves, you know, how our minds are so, you know, our inner critic is alive and well.
Mhm.
But Michelle
Oh.
gets us in that little circle and the
It's
safety.
trying.
Oh, you do, dear. Like that connection is, you know, when we get into that circle and we all radiate out to each other and get our candles going and it's safe and we need that safety, you know, for that love to really, you know, well, for the vulnerability, you know, we need that safety, right?
Mhm.
Well, again, I mean, the key is that this is learned behaviors. So it's almost, the Zoom room is almost perfect for that right now.
Yeah.
In terms of us learning how to do that again, because the more we do that right now and we have that safety right now, then we can take that into our in-person life and add
Yes.
the in-person element that we need as well, because we definitely do need that. But this is the bridge between that. And the great thing about being able to do this, it doesn't matter where we are in the world, we still have this group. Like that is the safety of Zoom and the virtual community, is that we can all meet together, but we do need to then move it to, we do need that in-person connection. But let's start doing that process again. Let's start creating those bridges and getting those behaviors back that we lost somewhere along the line, thinking we have to do this by ourselves and we have to do it right. And I need to be perfect, because that is not true.
Perfect and separate.
Yes.
Like you said, we have to do it ourselves.
Right.
So we are at the top of our hour.
Right.
Okay.
And what I just wanted to share with you two, who will be future speakers, is right after after the show. So
Well,
Sandy,
Tracy, let me just end and
choice.
say thank you everyone for joining us for Workshop for Moms tonight. And we really appreciate it. And we hope you join us next week. We'll be in the AM next week, 9 to 11 PST AM, and they'll just keep rotating. So we hit all time zones. Come check out the Facebook group where you can get all the details and figure out which speakers are coming, and come join us. And this is where the replays will be.
yes, replays, and replays last for a week. So, and then next week we have a different batch to listen to.
And Tracy,
Yeah.
thank you so much, dear. I had a couple of comments on your presentation. I didn't get a chance, but you were absolutely wonderful, and you are not a dinosaur. You the research, and neither am I. And we never will be, because the research, I don't know, in terms of your area, you're probably finding the same thing, but in terms of speech and language.